testimony of how God gave me my car. Now, I am believing that God is going to give me a house very soon, and I will be able to come back with a how God gave me my house testimony, you feel me? Because I'm currently living in a camper with my husband and our 4 babies, which totally content with, but God's promised me a house, so I'm gonna pray for my house. Now, I would normally not like put numbers and like money and things like that, like specifics in this video, but it's so crucial to this testimony how God just like came through in every single way possible. Also, just for context reasons, I did not want a new car. I actually loved the car that I had before, which was a 2020 Jeep Renegade. It was teeny tiny, but it was such a good car to me and my little family. We were very squished and very crowded because we had car seats, but we found out that I was pregnant and we knew we were going to have to add yet another car seat, and I did not have enough room, so God promised me a new car as I began to pray about needing this now. So I went to go visit my mom in my hometown, and the Lord gave me a word through a friend who basically told me to sell my car. Now I was like, Lord, what? Like, I owe so much on my Jeep still. How do I go about this? And as I'm in prayer, the Lord prompts me to reach out to my cousin who has like basically sold a lot of her newer cars. So she tells me while I'm on the phone with her to go through CarMax or see if I can get a quote from them or Kelley Blue Book online. So I go, I type my information in there, my car's VIN number, all that, and I get a quote, right? Not really expecting anything to come from it, but the next day I wake up from a lot of different text messages from a lot of dealerships about 45 minutes from where my mom lived. I also want to say that at this point I was already like 38 weeks pregnant, so I needed a car and I needed it fast because I had no idea when I was going to give birth. I began to just pray that this process would be quick and that God would just give me the discernment to know which dealership to go to. Car dealerships for me, and like that whole process of getting a new car, as exciting as it is, it makes me so nervous and it gives me anxiety, and I think God knew that I would just kind of feel safer if like my car salesman was a woman, or so I thought. And a woman reaches out to me and she just tells me she'd be willing to help me. She was really kind, really sweet. I felt more comfortable with her, more at peace with her, and so I knew that this was the direction that God was leading me. So after a few days of just praying on it, me and my husband were just like, you know what, let's just go take our Jeep in, let's just see if we can get a quote and see if she'd be willing to help us, right? So we show up to the dealership, we walk in and we ask for our car dealership, or the car saleswoman. We ask for her, and basically this other guy comes back and is like, oh, I'll be the one helping you now, she's not available right now. So in all honesty, that threw me off, but I knew this was where God led me for a reason. So I stayed there and I just continued to pray, and me and this car salesman just start talking, and he's like asking me, what do you and your husband do for a living, like just all these questions. And I honestly, I was at a loss for words because like I didn't know how to explain, like, oh hey, like I do online ministry, like we're not working, we're walking in obedience to God, like all this, right? Because it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And immediately he was like, wow, that is amazing. And then he was like, I don't see a lot of young people like having that fire to pursue God anymore. And then he says, but trust that God has sent you to one of his servants. I knew there was a reason I felt called to help you. You guys, like my mouth dropped after this, and right before this, I do have to say, like, I was praying to God to just give me confirmation that I was in the right place. And then he said this, and so I was just literally shook. So after this, he starts asking me questions about my budget and what I'm looking for, and I needed a bigger car. Okay, so I needed more space, but something that wasn't going to be too expensive. And basically, in a long story short, he shows me one car, and it had just enough room for all of us to fit comfortably. And basically, in a long story short, this car is, I'm going to refer to it as the gray car. And it's basically, it looked like I had to get that car, but it just didn't sit right with me. My discernment was going off, and I was like, something's not right here. I didn't know what it was, but something was not sitting right in my spirit. But I just continued to pray to the Lord, and I just asked him that if this was not the car for me, do not let it happen. I'm also fully aware that that sounds literally crazy, because that was literally the only car that I could get, or so I thought. The crazy part is everything was going perfectly in order for me to get this car. No mishaps, no nothing, okay? The only thing that kept me from going home that same day with the car was that my mom was going to co-sign with me on this car, and she was not physically there to be able to sign all the paperwork. But they told me that I could take this packet home, have her sign, and then bring it back the next day, and I'd be able to drive off with the car. And everything would be signed, sealed, delivered. So basically, I take the packet home, my mom signs the paperwork, and I was going to take it back the next day, but they told me I would not be able to drive off the lot with that gray car without insurance. This is where it gets a little crazy, so stick with me. My husband and I start calling places to get quotes on this car. You guys, every single place that we were calling to get insurance on this car was giving us literally over $1,000 quotes. Okay, I cannot pay that on top of a car payment. And honestly, even if I could, that just seems a little bit bogus. Mind you guys, like, this car is a 2019. It's used. It has miles on it, quite a bit of miles, and it's just confusing. Like, why is it so much? So me and my husband reach out to our car salesman, and we tell him, like, hey, I don't think we're going to be able to get this car. We're getting quoted all these, like, crazy amounts, and we don't know why. My husband was finally just like, you know what, I'm going to check the Carfax on it. And that's exactly what he did. Come to find out, you guys, this car had been stolen twice and was had like mechanical issues or something like that. And so no places were wanting to insure us, hence the price. So we share this with our car salesman, and we're like, hey, we cannot get this car. Now, honestly, I was feeling like discouraged because I was so big and so pregnant. But, oh my gosh, thank you, Holy Spirit. I also, okay, this is crazy. Okay. Right before we went to get the car, my mom told me, I had a vision of you and the kids and Eric standing in front of a red SUV posing for pictures. She's like, the car that God's going to give you is going to be red. So the crazy part is our car salesman texts me back, and he's like, you know, funny enough, we have that same car, only a newer year. It's red and its interior is white, and he sends me pictures of it, and immediately I knew that was my car. He explained to me that there was a woman using that car basically as a rental because her car was getting detailed or like in the shop or something, and it was being brought that day. So if I wanted to, I could then go and fill out the paperwork for that car and drive off the lot that same day with that car. I hate to do this to you guys because it's getting so good. Like, I'm about to tell you guys all the crazy miracles and things that God did, but it's gonna have to be in a part 2. So you guys go check out part 2. Part 2 of how God gave me my new car. Okay, so my car salesman told me about the red car, and I immediately knew that that was the car that God had for me because my mom's vision and My mom rarely ever has visions, but when she does, they're very on point. Mind you, I had been like keeping my mom filled in about like what was going on, and she was like, that is so crazy. But even she like told me, I have been praying that if that's not the car for you guys, that God would not allow it. So like when I told her that the car we were gonna get was gray, she was like, And then when I told her that the only other available car for me to get was the red one, she was like, that's it. God is always in the small details. I just love the way he speaks. So my car salesman sent me pictures of the red car, all the important like things about the car, like the VIN and stuff like that. And he's like, here, try to see if they'll give you better quotes for this car. So that's exactly what we did. And sure enough, the quotes were like right in the price range that we were looking for. So we go back to the dealership, they shred up the paperwork for the gray car and give us the paperwork for the red car. Now, a huge part of this testimony is that I had absolutely no way of getting this car on my own. I did not have good credit. I had not a dollar to my name walking into this dealership. And when I actually got to the dealership, I discovered that my credit was even worse than what I actually thought it was. So that was just not fun at all. But because of that, I ended up having to go across the street from this dealership to a credit union, basically, which is like a place that helps people with bad credit get loans on a car. And basically, a lot of things would have to end up being finalized there at this credit union before I could actually drive off the lot with that car and sign all the paperwork for it and stuff. But here is where we just begin to run into a lot of warfare, because my mom was also co-signing with me on the car. There was like 3 different things that came up that was just looking like I wasn't going to get it, just because they're very like, they have to be very careful about the forms of identification that they can accept, because they have to be able to identify that is you, right? Now, my mom just recently got married, and so her last name was different on her social, and then me, like my address was different, and it was just a bunch of things like that. And so another big thing that I forgot to mention before is that I had already been pre-approved for the gray car. So my loan officer at this credit union told me, I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't look like you're going to get this car, the red car, because they already approved you for this one, and it just makes you look inconsistent and bad. But even he was like shocked that the gray car was even on the lot, like given its like insurance prices. And bless his heart, because he absolutely did everything that he could to get us approved. Like, I know he was God sent. But again, I grew so discouraged hearing this, and I just told him to give me a minute, and my husband went and sat with him, and I went to the bathroom to pray and cry, of course, and the Lord just kept assuring me that he was going to take care of us. I wiped my tears, and I just said, okay, God, like, I trust you. I walked back out. I went to go sit down to talk to the loan officer, and he was like, I have great news for you. I was able to get you approved. He also mentioned that he was able to throw in a lot of insurances for us on the side, like for free. The biggest hassle was this paperwork, you guys. Like, it was insane. So Eric and I are just so happy. We feel so relieved, and we have to go back to the car dealership to basically sign the paperwork. So we get back to the dealership. I'm talking to my car salesman, and you guys, like, when I had first arrived, I literally showed him the amount, like, from I think it was like the app that like showed me my credit score and stuff. It showed me my loan amount, okay, on the Jeep. I literally showed him, okay, and I'm just gonna say like the numbers and stuff. because it's crazy. I still owed $17,000. I want to say $128. It was something like that. Well, my car salesman comes back and he's like, there was a mishap. And I was like, what? And he was like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to get this car. And like my heart just like broke. And I said, like, what happened? And he said, for some reason my boss is like looking at the paperwork and it says that you owe $17,600 and like 70 something dollars. And I was like, what? As I said before, I had no down payment, I had nothing. And he begins to tell me, I know you don't have a down payment, but if you did, like, that would really help in something like this, and you'd be able to drive off the lot with this car. So I just start crying, and I like text my husband, and I'm just like, please pray, like I need a miracle, like right here, right now. And my husband's like, okay. He's also like, what's going on? Like, are we getting the car? Like, did something happen? And I just can't get into detail with it over text, right? But I'm sitting there waiting for my car salesman to come back into the room and, like, you know, let me know what's going on and stuff. And he comes back to me and he tells me, I'm gonna try not to cry. So he walks back in and he's like, he literally says, God is so good. And I said, what? Like, what happened? And he said, I told my boss that I would pay the remaining $500 to $600 that you owed. And he said his boss was like, you don't even know these people, and you would do that for them? And he said, yes, like, I'm a servant of the Lord. Like, he led me to them to help them. And he said that his boss just looked at him and was like, you know what? You don't have to pay anything at all. I'm just gonna clear it in the computer. You guys, the way that I sobbed, and like, I still get emotional about this. God is just so good. I can't. You guys, like, that in itself was a miracle. I had no idea where the rest of that debt even came up, like how it even showed up that we still owed that much, when before I had previously looked, it was $500 less. Like, it was crazy. But you guys, like, that literally does not happen. That literally does not happen. And I'm sure that they could have probably gotten in trouble for that, but God, like, me and my husband were just so blown away. And even like as we were about to leave that day, like, we signed the paperwork on the car, and right before we were about to drive off, like I said, we had not even $1, you guys, to our name, and us and like our kids were so hungry. We had just been driving back and forth, and our car salesman just looked at me and was like, are you hungry? And I was like, honestly, yeah, like, I'm starving, I'm big pregnant, it's hot, like. And he was like, the Lord put it on my heart to buy a meal for you and your family, so I'm gonna, if I could get your Cash App, like, I'm gonna Cash App you, and I want you to go feed your family. You guys, like, I could never thank God enough for the people that he put in our path to help us get this car right when we needed it. But let me tell you guys, he is the God of the impossible. Okay, I literally had no down payment. I had no money. I had horrible credit. Every reason to not get a car, but God. And I actually have pictures of, well, a picture of my car posted. It's beautiful. It's like everything I could ever want and more. And it's perfect for me and my family. I don't know who this is for, but I pray that it blessed your spirit. And I just pray that you would see the impossible come to pass in your life, in Jesus' name.